GAA Podcast on RTE.ie, sponsored by Optimum Nutrition. No matter your goal, if you're putting it in, we'll help you get more out. Optimum Nutrition, the official performance nutrition partner of the Gaelic Players Association.
Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello everyone and welcome along to our latest episode of the RTÉ GAA Podcast. Myself and Rory joined by Tomás O'Shea and Peter Canavan this week to look ahead to the final round of the round robin football. So Saturday you've got Cork-Tyrone, Roscommon, Cavan, Donegal, Clare and Derry, Westmeath. Then on Sunday, Galway, Armagh, Louth, Kerry, Monaghan, Meath and Dublin against Mayo. I think Tomás, Dublin, Mayo, anytime they're on the billing, they always just seem to get that top slot, even though I was reading Lee Keegan saying it's not a knockout game, there's no field, there's no pressure on this one. It's still box office, so isn't it?
I don't know what you say box office, Jacqui, but it's still like, I think you're talking Mayo, Dublin, you're talking the last 10 years and the big, huge games that you had. I don't think it's comparing like with like.
Yeah.
I remember... I think it's a different Mayo team that you have now. I think it's a completely different Mayo team than the Mayo team that played those dubs. Even if you go back through the Dublin team at the time, yeah, there's 5 or 6 players probably, but it's a different era. To be very similar to when we played those Tyrone teams in the mid-noughties, and then we played them some year, I don't know what year it was, down in Killarney. It was different. It wasn't the same Tyrone team we played down in Killarney in Championship that time. So I think it's different as it is now. I don't think Mayo are at the level they were when that Dublin, they were the top 2 teams in terms of you might have thrown 1 or 2 in every second year, but the biggest games for a period of 5 or 6 years were the Dublin Mayo matches. But I don't think, like I'm not wetting my lips at this. I don't know what to expect from Mayo. I don't think they have been firing on all cylinders. I think they're struggling in certain areas. In terms of scoring in particular, again, and I know it's a cliche to say that, but I do think there's issues there. And I think it's not going to whet the appetites like the other big games Dublin and Mayo used to have down the years.
That's understandable. And with that in mind, Peter, does Kevin McStay use this as a free shot to try something different because of what Tomás has just said there?
Yeah, I don't even know about the free shot bit because it's more important than that from a Mayo perspective. I agree with Tomás on that this Mayo team aren't playing to the level that they were a few years ago, but I would also argue maybe that neither are Dublin. So this is a very tricky assignment for Dublin, because if they don't take Mayo or treat Mayo with the utmost of respect, then they can be turned over here. If they produce the type of performance that they did, for example, I thought they were very mediocre in the Leinster final. Well, if they play to that standard and Mayo were really up for this game, then Mayo will beat them. And that will really boost Mayo's chances of progressing in the championship, gives them that extra week, much better draw. And whereas Dublin will be in a position that they didn't expect to find themselves in. So Dublin wouldn't need to underestimate Mayo. That's what I'm saying. And I do think, why would Mayo not be fired up for this game? Why? This is the challenge that they've been waiting for. And who did they beat down in Killarney? Kerry, you recall that was their best performance last year. So yeah, so look, there's no reason why Mayo can't turn Dublin over here.
The thing is, after that performance in Killarney, they teetered off though, Tomás, didn't they? They I think maybe it's a different feeling this year because of what happened last year with Mayo.
Yeah, and look, we've written off Mayo so many times and been wrong about it. I think something interesting about the Dubs, and I know, Peter, that they haven't fired maybe. There was a 2 or 3 weeks I felt in the league, and I might be completely wrong about this, but I felt there was 2 or 3 weeks where they came across Derry, where they came across Kerry, and they came across one other big gun. And just for those 2 or 3 weeks, you just saw them flex and you saw them really. And I remember thinking, Christ, they can't keep that going because they blew Kerry out of the water. They blew Derry out of the water. Everybody was talking about Derry at the time, if everybody remembers. And they just absolutely embarrassed them above. And then it was as if right, we'll wake up here now. And it's not as if they can automatically switch on and switch
Maybe
off.
they can switch it on, Tomás.
But
Maybe they can.
I definitely think, I remember thinking, I don't know, was it after they can keep doing this for the full season, because it'll be ridiculous if they're going through Leinster, etc. They don't need to be doing it either throughout the full season. So then the question still lies, will they be able to do it exactly when they need to? Are they going to time it? And are we going to be turning around in 5 weeks' time saying, yeah, Jesus, they did it again? So I do think that they can. I think there's more in the Dubs, is what I'm basically saying. And don't get me wrong, that's not to say that Mayo won't, and I think it will. I agree with Peter. I think it'll be hell for leather. I think Mayo have to, if Mayo have any inkling of going further in the championship, they have to get a dose of confidence. And the only way, what better way to get a dose of confidence than to beat the Dubs in the running.
But I'd say this is Dublin's first real test in quite a while, Tomás, because the no disrespect, Louth, Meath, Roscommon, Cavan, and regarding the league, you mentioned the league. Without a doubt, their priority was to bring in a few players to blood them, to see if they're good enough. The likes of McGuinness and O'Dell and McMahon and these boys, and they played really well, so they have strengthened the panel. But Desi also knows that he needs Fitzsimons, he needs James McCarthy back, and they haven't been playing in the league, and they've been a bit rusty, to say the least, since they've come back. And it's imperative from a Dublin point of view, if they're going to win Sam again, their main men last year towards the closing stages were Fitzsimons and McCarthy, and they have a bit to go to get back up to that level. So that's why I would give Mayo a good chance here.
The week off, it's a big thing, Rory, as well. I know we're still only into the trial period of over the last couple of years. It's very hard to judge based on the research that's there so far over just 1 year. But do you still think it's a big prize for teams?
It probably is for the non-Dublins or Kerrys. I think Dublin or Kerry would negotiate that week on fairly comfortably, depending on who would come through second, third, and other groups. I don't know if it would be a huge imposition on them.
Unless you got a Derry or a Donegal.
Yeah, but potentially. But I still think the two, I often get criticised for having this typical RT Dublin Kerry, it's always Dublin Kerry obsession, but it's just the facts, it's just the reality. And it's just a historical thing. The reality in Gaelic football is the 50s, the 70s, the middle of the 80s, going back up to the 90s. It's just a cyclical thing. Dublin Kerry generally tend to get on top in Gaelic football, and that's just the way it's always been, and it's the way it is right now. I don't necessarily think they'd be too unduly worried about having to negotiate the week on. I think one factor that I do think is significant is the venue. Could you potentially consider it a home venue for Mayo? Have they played 3 championship matches, certainly 2 championship matches, and maybe a league game?
In fairness, the reason they tend to win so much there, though, is because they're playing Roscommon. They're not playing Dublin there every week.
That is true. But I think, look, the Dublin are scoring goals for fun. They haven't really fired yet. The last time they put 5-17 on Cavan, they're banging goals in. The form of Conor Callaghan, as Tomás said, they feel like a team that their interest needs to be piqued. They need to be turned on by the challenge of certain matches now, because they've conquered everything at this point. Well, certainly most of them have. And I think the Mayo in the Hyde will be one of those things that will pique their interest. So, but I do think it'll be competitive. I don't necessarily see this one-way traffic. I think Mayo will give them their fill of it, but maybe just not be good enough.
Yeah, well, interesting to see how that one goes. I'm sure it'll be close. No doubt about Armagh, Galway, whether this will be close or not. You look at them over the last couple of years, Tomás, point between them last year, penalties separating them in 2022. This should be another rip-roaring game between two teams who've built up a decent rivalry over the last couple of years out of nowhere. Yeah,
it's been, I think Galway, I enjoy watching Galway. I think it's been a really, really difficult year for Pádraig Joyce in the way he's managed it. To stay up in Division 1 the way he did with the players he was missing, I don't think there are too many teams that could have done it. And they did, and they've come through Connacht, and they do have a relationship with Armagh. You see, I suppose we really, really don't know either side if they have the consistency to do. We know what they're like when they perform really, really well. Galway can be really, really dangerous. So can Armagh. Armagh are electric, I think, when they're on song. Electric. And I think they have footballers in every sector of the field that can hurt you, and attacking wise. I'm not sure, is there still a doubt in their mind in terms, or a doubt or a fear or something that makes them click into a different gear or a different kind of a defensive mode, instead of when they have their foot on someone's throat to actually drive it through it. I'm not sure, is that still there, but in their last performance, I thought it was as good as they've given in a long time. And I do think Comer is going to be a huge loss for Galway, but we keep doubting Galway, and they keep.
And Sean Kelly is rumoured to be out as well, Tomás.
Well, Sean Kelly and Finnerty and Comer, but Comer in particular, I think he just, if you have to mind Shane Welsh, who's coming into a good bit of form as well, but I think Comer is the one that is unpredictable. Comer could end up anywhere, do anything, end up on the end of a high ball into the square. He's a guy that's hard to mark, and I think he's key to them, and I think he injects a bit of confidence into the rest of the team when they have everybody. If Galway had everybody, I would fancy Galway. I'll be straight up about it, but I think Armagh, sure, you have to. I've great admiration for the way they keep coming back, but then what other choice have they but only to keep coming back? But it's I like the way they carry themselves. I like the way they operate. I like the way they approach games. And I do think that probably the fact that Galway are missing Kelly, he's been an outstanding aggressive player, like that he can play, fill so many gaps for them. I just feel that Armagh have the advantage because of Comer and Kelly not being there.
What do you think of that, Peter?
Without a doubt, it's advantage Armagh. I don't think Galway can manage without the quality of those players that they're going to be missing. And if Armagh, go at Galway the way they went at Derry and play on the front foot, they have the ammunition to do it. They have the strength. The physicality around the middle sector was very impressive against Derry. And when you bear in mind that the two of the players that they brought in that played very little football for them last year, Niall Grimley and Ross McQuillan, they were both superb against Derry. And a feature of them in a couple of games previous was the subs that Kieran McGeeney brought on, Aidan Nugent, Jason Duffy, and in particular Oisin O'Neill, all make a big difference when they come on. And now he's another two players that he's unearthed as well, or appear to be in really good form. So unlike Galway, he has serious decisions to make regarding his first 15, and if things aren't going well, he knows that he's serious strength and depth. And there's an air of confidence about Armagh again. On the one hand, after the despair of the Ulster final, losing the Ulster final on penalties, and a lot of people were critical once again of the manner in which they didn't finish Donegal off. McGeeney was coming out of it saying it's another game in which nobody was able to beat us in 2 years of championship football. Nobody can put us away. So he was looking on it from very much from a positive point of view. And the players have stuck by him again. That was a great response up in Celtic Park. And the county's on a high, and this is a big game moving forward as well. And if Galway don't come out the right side of this, I think that's going to leave it very difficult with them, bearing in mind the amount of injuries that they have to make inroads in the championship this year.
Like they're a different team, Rory, with Comer, Kelly, Finnerty, and then Tomás is right. I think what they did at the start of the year was incredible to be able to do that. If they're going to replicate that in championship without some of these key players, it'll be a monumental performance. Because let's not forget, Armagh only need a draw here as well in a tight game to top this group. And if Galway do have to go and play again on the bounce, they just might be running out of time to get some of those key players back.
Yeah, the thing about injuries, though, Jacqui, I remember reading Liam Hayes' book a good long while ago. It's a great read, actually, and he was telling a story about the build-up to the 1988 replay with Cork, and the drawn match had been quite a battle, let's say, right? So And one of the key players from a Meath perspective was injured, and Hayes was kind of over just having a look to see, oh, is he, and blah, blah. And Boylan said, he was, the story was that Boylan said, he's no use to us now. He's gone. We move on. And that's probably the cutthroat nature of intercounty. You know, I think you can't keep cribbing about injuries. You just have to deal with them. Every county has them. And I think one of the issues that the condensed calendar and split season, one of the downsides is it puts a huge concentration of games into a much shorter period, which means that the chances of probably picking up injury, given the proliferation of a lot more contact and a lot more hours on field, is going to become higher. So you're just going to have to deal with it. That's why your medical department is going to become increasingly important. And I suppose it's not a coincidence then again that Dublin Kerry seem to be market leaders on that front. But I think from their point of view, they will eventually have to just decide, look, we have who we have. And I don't, in fairness, think you hear any excuses. I
don't think they've whinged about it at all.
Yeah. In fairness now, like you don't hear excuses from Pádraig Joyce. And look, having said that, I think they have a very good record. Joyce himself has a very good record against Ulster teams. Their only defeat to Armagh came in last year's round robin, which obviously we're now in the exact same position again. And the game in Markovich Park, which again, look, it's a Connacht venue that Galway will be familiar with. They've already played championship football there this year. I think that does count for something. But Armagh will bring hordes down to this, as they always do. The county's on a high. Could easily see this one going right to the wire. Wouldn't be surprised to see a draw.
Yeah. And if that is the case, it'll be Armagh who top the group and get that week off. I think the other game in this group, Tomás, is nearly as intriguing, because if you'd have said at the start of the year that Derry would be in this position fighting for their lives, even to just stay in the championship, I don't think anybody would have seen it. But when you're seeing this team leaking the amount of goals that they're leaking, it actually probably wouldn't surprise anybody if they were to go out this weekend, just given the topsy-turvy nature of what's been going on there.
Yeah, when you think about Derry the last 2 or 3 years, I think you think, number one, being hard to beat at the back. And that's been blown out of the water. I think that's the main thing that's been blown out of the water. How aggressively they push up and how wide open they are at the back. Like I used to always remember watching them, and they used to always have their players inside the opposition 65, and they used to play a kind of a possession game. But I think the main thing is, and I was always interested watching it. If this breaks down, why don't teams go at them? This was when they were going well.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is they were giving the ball away a lot less. They were killing the ball. They were scoring an awful lot of it. And if they didn't score, they killed it. So the ball, the odd time a team would get a turnover, they would nail it at source. But the problem now is I think teams are working an awful lot at it. They know teams are pushing up. They know teams are committing bodies forward. So they're working in training to counter-attack a lot more. Cork did the exact same to Donegal down in Páirc Uí Rinn. But it's funny, without being insulting, how often it's happened to Derry and their goalie. And I suppose everybody's talking that Mickey Harte is stubborn. I don't think it's all Mickey Harte. It can't all be Mickey Harte. I mean, there's a management there. There's players there that take full control, I would say, of a lot of things. Also, the buck stops with Mickey. There's no doubt about that. The big thing I'm looking forward to, I feel Derry are good enough and should be good enough to beat Westmeath. But will they change it up in any way, or will they go at it? Because if they go at it, I think when they come against a better team than Westmeath, and that's not disrespecting Westmeath, I've been seriously impressed with the way they defend and the way they attack and the approach that they've come up from the Talton. I think they're a prime example of how teams should develop and what they've achieved the last few years. But my worry for Derry would be that the confidence is so knocked out of them that if you rattle their cage anyway now, that they will panic like they haven't panicked before.
But that's the question, Peter. You know, I'm not saying it's legacy defining stuff, because I'm sure they want to be judged by bigger merits than winning a round robin game. But if they were to go out this weekend, it would be seen as a massive failure for a group that we had such high expectations of. So Tomás is right. Do you stick or twist? Do you risk it all and change it up this weekend, or do you stick to it? You know Mickey better than anyone. What do you expect from them this weekend?
Yeah, he doesn't tend to change things too much, and he'll stick to his own principle. But he's not a foolish man either. If they go out and play the same style, the same system as they did in the last few games, I think they're going to get the same result. So I would expect, I'll be very surprised if Derry don't come out with a different game plan, and that they will be more orthodox in terms of their setup. Even after 3 or 4 minutes, the first 2 or 3 attacks up in Celtic Park, it was very obvious, looking down on it, that if you froze the play when Derry had possession, there were occasions when their 15 players were inside the opposition's 45. Now, that's leaving nobody back. A few times Lynch did come forward, so they can't do that again. They're not going to push all their defenders up in that manner. They're going to keep 2 or 3 sitting back, and they have the firepower up front and the personnel around the middle of the park to hurt opposition anyway. So absolutely, they have to change it up, and I think they will be more orthodox. They'll be keeping more bodies back, and they'll be letting the men up front try and do the damage. Like Mickey Harte has been taking a fair bit of criticism, and he'll come out fighting. There's no, when they put him in a corner, there's only one thing he'll do. But Tomás says it's the players. It's up to the players. You need to see a response from them, and I do believe there's enough leaders within that camp to come out. Yes, things aren't going the way they expected, and there's all sorts of rumours going on and plans taking shape for next year and whatnot. Doesn't matter. If you're a Derry player and you're handed a jersey at the weekend, you'll want to do your best. So likewise, regardless of what way Westmeath come out, and I expect a big game from them, they've been playing to a very consistent level, but Derry have the stuff to come out on top here, and I would expect them to do that.
It must be hard in the middle of all that, though, with the rumour mill circulating and everything going on and people talking about next year, and you're still just trying to win a game, and they have to know themselves things are not going right. So, I would imagine it's a volatile situation inside there in Derry, whatever happens this weekend.
Well, Tomás would tell you there was years when things mightn't have been going all that well in the kingdom in the month of June, and all sorts of rumours about what was happening. Yet when it came to the third Sunday in September, as it was back then, the green and gold were walking the steps. So there's nothing wrong with the odd bird in the camp, but such is the nature of this downfall from a Derry perspective. Literally, nobody's seen it coming. And it's not a case of losing 1 or 2 tough matches by a point or two. It's just been the manner of their defeats has been alarming. And that's why it's going to take something special to turn it around.
The rumours of disharmony in the Kerry camp, that rumour mill, that was always a sign for me. Kerry are going to win the All-Ireland. That's it.
But you couldn't say that about Derry right now, though.
The minute you, I always, like Cork people say, the minute you start hearing that, well, put your house on it, they'll go on. Look, to me, Jacqui, I think Derry should be out. I think Derry have stunk the championship out from start to finish. They shouldn't be in the championship at this stage. It's as simple as that. They've been beaten 3 times comprehensively. And like the fact that they can, get another chance on at the weekend and progress to the last 12. Look, that's a separate issue, I know, and we can talk about that another day. But to me, that's just simply wrong. It defeats the purpose of the championship. Westmeath, I think, look, to be fair, they played really well against Galway for the most part. Stuck on the 11-point mark, 3 championship matches so far, and 11 points. That's not going to be enough to win games, unfortunately. Desi knows that. If they up it, and if they were to get a better twist out of their attack, I'd give them a chance here, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, well, Westmeath do have the better scoring difference as well, so don't forget, a draw for them sends them through and sends Derry out. Let's give you the last word on that rumour mill then, Tomás. Was it always a sign that when that was happening, as the lads have outlined, that the All-Ireland was on the line, and could you see Derry doing a Kerry on it?
Well, I know for a fact there was a lot of crazy things were said that happened in the Kerry camp. To be fair, a lot of them did happen. Like, there was fellas going missing or whatnot. There was fellas not showing up for training. But I think, look, and Peter would have been in the same situation because Tyrone won All-Ireland's after they had been beaten. There has to be, you have to have a core group and you have to have a management, and it's always led by management, that we used to have one meeting, and if there was stuff that had to be flushed out, we flushed it out. But I think everybody left the meeting knowing this is what we want to do. This is how we do it. It's up to us now to drive it on and to do it. And, it worked out some years for us. It didn't other years. But yeah, the rumour mill, look, I've no doubt that the rumour mill has been well sorted. Mickey is around long enough to have that well sorted early on. And I know he was supposed to be gone very early on. And I'd say the pressure is like
he's under savage pressure.
County jobs everywhere, no matter what county you're in, lads. It is, it has to take its toll on a personal level on fellas. But ultimately the buck stops with the manager, and I've no doubt that Derry would have themselves back on track. The big question is, and Peter made the exact same point, if they come out to play the same way, their confidence will get shattered fairly early, even by a so-called weaker team. Because if Westmeath smell blood, I'm telling you, they can be awkward enough in their own way as well. But I would expect, I'd expect Derry to answer this week. I'd expect them to win it this weekend.
Interesting to see what happens there. Last big game I want to look at here is Cork against Tyrone, and huge game for both, Peter, because a chance to top the group, which I certainly think from Cork's point of view, the way that everything has turned around in the last couple of weeks would be a massive prize to be able to get a weekend off and avoid potentially Dublin, Kerry in the quarterfinals. Similar situation for Tyrone. Just, I think after that early defeat, to be able to bounce back and put themselves in this position, I think the prize for both of these teams is massive here.
It's a massive game for Donegal too.
Yeah.
Because Donegal, you would expect, okay, they'll defeat Clare. So if Cork win this, then Donegal don't get the break. They're going to have a very difficult route to go through. They could end up meeting the likes of Dublin and Kerry much sooner than they would have expected.
Yeah.
So absolutely, and likewise, what it would do for Cork, they only need a point to get them through here. So massive game from a Tyrone point of view. I don't think by Tyrone beating Cork, it's not going to result in Tyrone top on the group regardless. But from a Tyrone perspective, you're playing for second or third position, and even in that.
Well, if Donegal were to win, the three teams would be on 4 points each, Peter, and Tyrone's scoring average is good, I think, isn't it?
But I think Donegal's will be much healthier after the weekend.
Donegal's scoring difference at the moment is +5. Tyrone's is +7 and Cork's is +4. But you would imagine if Donegal, you're right, Peter, if they go and put up a score against Clare at the weekend, then they would put themselves in that position.
Yeah, if both Tyrone and Donegal win, Donegal need to beat Clare by at least 2 points more than 2. Beat Cork. But from a Tyrone point of view, we'll talk about inconsistent performances, and from game to game, we've spoke about it from the start of the league, anytime we've been on here, and we're now, in the middle of June, and that problem hasn't been solved, and that inconsistency from game to game, inconsistency in the middle of games. First half against Donegal, very good. First half against Clare, shocking. Clare probably, if it hadn't been from Niall Devlin coming up corner back, they had a couple of goals. Clare could have been in front. We stepped it up in the second half. So we are still playing at times good football, and other times it's slow, it's laboured. The ball's been moved through the hands and given opposition time to get defensive shape in place, and it's been a struggle to watch them. So against Cork, and Cork have been playing a pretty defensive game. They're allowing opposition to win kickouts, and they're saying, right, come on ahead. We're setting up in the middle sector here, try and break us down. A lot of teams, including Donegal, have struggled to do that, and as soon as they turn them over, Cork are now hitting teams with lightning pace and getting a reward. They have players to do it. So Tyrone are in for a massive game. There's going to be a big Cork support down there in Tullamore with the hurlers playing after it. So that's good. I'm glad that the players have been made that decision, because there will be a good atmosphere there. And as you say, there's a lot of stake. But look, it's a point or two either way. I can see this one going to the wire, and it'll be a close one.
I think, again, look, the fact, as you say, that Cork only need a point is massive. I think the other thing, Tomás, is the confidence that they'll be bringing into this. They've only lost one game in their last 8 league and championship games, and that's a Munster semi-final against Kerry, who nobody was really giving them a chance in anyway, apart from those inside the camp who were telling you that everything was going really well. I think this is a Cork team who should be going to Tullamore with massive confidence on the weekend.
Yeah, I think something that's always thrown at a Cork team is that when they do have a good championship win or victory, that then they find it difficult to follow it up. I think they started the National League with an awful thumping from Donegal above. I'd say an awful lot of Cork people were expecting Donegal not to beat them well, but to beat them at the last day. What impressed me was they seemed to have Donegal sussed. The amount of times they turned Donegal up, they didn't come in and wait for them to come inside their 45. They turned them over high up the pitch, sometimes inside in their own half. They got 2 goals certainly from it. They're physically a very, very big team. My worry for Cork at the weekend is, like, Niall Devlin was excellent. Matty Donnelly came from the back. Tyrone have lads who can come from the back, but they also have that full forward line who were quite enough until about 45 minutes against Clare, and I presume they'll be looking in at that. My concern would be that if you look man for man at the Cork full back line, I'm not sure do they match up particularly well to the full forward line that with the 2 Canavans and McCurry inside. I think Tyrone can mix it up that little bit more. Tyrone can move it, but if Tyrone move it fast, it'll suit them better. And I think that won't suit Cork. However, I'd have to give kudos, and I know Kevin Walsh is involved in Cork. They seem to analyse teams fairly well. They have this long kick out, and Donegal, I thought, were a big physical team in around the middle of the field. They overload one flank, they drive it out, they put about 5 or 6 big men under it. And I think, I counted 7 off the top of my head, and Donegal only won 1 of them. And that was towards the end of the match. I think if you ask me one area where I think Cork could need strengthening up, and it might be exposed at the weekend, would be just up front in terms of a marquee finisher. Conor Corbett came in the last day, and they would have been great, I suppose, hope for him in terms of pace, in terms of injection, and he didn't, but he might have it the next day. And there are certainly young lads coming through, but I think Cork, it's a huge game. Forget about the rest of the championship. If they can take 2 scalps that would have been seen far out of their reach maybe 6 months ago in Donegal and Tyrone, then they would bring.
They'll still get no credit.
Well, I think they will, Rory. I think it's coming, and they'll have.
They will. Sure. Like, apparently Donegal were tired the last day. Last year, I think Mayo were tired by the time. And then of course beat Roscommon at home, another Division 1 team. Sure, they got caught. They had to travel up.
No, I genuinely think there's more strength. There's more about Cork than there has been. And I'm living inside in the middle of it, and I'd always question why they have. It's a confidence thing. You look at other counties like Derry, what's happening? They still had the same players that were playing brilliantly in the last few years. It's just there's a confidence issue, and I think it's growing in Cork. I think they'll have a big crowd above in Tullamore. I've gone to more Cork games this year than I've gone to Kerry games. I'll be above.
Good man, Tomás.
Again. I'm trying my best. So I still think Tyrone, even though they have been lacking consistency, I still think that if they click, that their forwards would have more about them than the Cork forward line on the other side. It'll be defensive in so many parts of it, but I do think that the key in the game will be that Tyrone full forward line.
I think there is a positivity about Cork, and I think they are getting the credit that they deserved for the type of football they're playing, and that's reflected in their supporters on the pitch after the Donegal game. there does appear to be a feel-good factor. Mind you, Tomás, I don't know if Brian Hurley will thank you for saying that they don't have a marquee forward up front, but anyway.
The other thing, he is dropping very deep though. He is coming back the field quite a bit, and I think it probably inhibits his ability to rack up scores. Like he's a brilliant fella to get a turnover, but Cathal O'Mahony, he's fit. He won't start. Obviously, he's out nearly 2 years. He was togged out the last day against Donegal, took a full part in the warm up pre and post. I think we might see him on Saturday. And if you talk about Mark, it's the kind of a tale of two O'Mahonys. It's Cathal, who I think will finally get back on the field, and I think that'd be a huge plus up front. And I think Daniel at the back, who for me is the best, well, certainly one of the best fullbacks out there. He has snuffed Clifford out, I think, twice now at this stage. How many fullbacks can do that? I think he coped fairly comfortably the last day with Oisín Gallen, and Dara will have him for company, I would imagine, on Saturday coming, and it'll be an unbelievable battle. And I don't know if he's come up against him. Would he have come up against him at Sigerson level? Did Ulster University play UCC at any stage over the last couple of years?
They would have, but I'm not too sure if they've come
2
up
years
again.
ago, I'd say. Yeah. I don't know that the lads come across him, but I don't think Daniel O'Mahony played Sigerson this year. I think it was last year that he would have played it, but I don't know that they come across the lads in that who they played in the final. I don't think it was. I think it was
Galway in the final, wasn't it?
Was it Galway?
The last big game, Rory, that these two younger sets of players would have came across was an All-Ireland semi-final at under 20 level.
It was in Tullamore as well, wasn't it? It was in Tullamore, yeah.
Cork finished the game very strong, to win by 2 points. That's right.
Yeah, so look, I think
was brilliant that day.
Yeah. Oh, look, listen, an outstanding player. Like Tyrone are heavy favourites. I think that'll suit Cork as well. They seem
surprised at that. If they are heavy favourites,
they are. Yeah, they are heavy favourites, and I think that suits Cork. Like they love that, and because that is a form of disrespect as well. And you use what you can, you know. And
you're using it well anyway. You are.
Well, I'd be racking all of these up anyway, and certainly going into it. Look, it's a great prize. It's an unbelievable opportunity. They'll have good support, and I think, I'm going. We're going down. So.
Listen, it's going to be a great day. Double header. The lads are right. Brilliant idea to put the two of them on together. I think it'll be a spectacular occasion as well, with the hurlers playing against Offaly. Let's finish off then on the rules. Just one last question, I guess, to all of you on what we're hearing during the week, Tomás, about what the Football Review Committee are looking at, all kinds of different rules being thrown out there as to what might be trialled. Is there anything that caught your eye that you would love to see happen in the modern game and given a right go?
Yeah, well, I know there's an amount of rules mentioned, and I know they can't bring in every rule, and they won't bring in every rule, and they have to see how it works out, and I know they're trialing them. But I genuinely think, for the first time, they're looking at they're not just looking at one or two things, they're looking at an amount of things. They have gone through it properly, they've brought it to every corner of the country, they've got opinions from everybody, all stakeholders have been asked. So I think every possible change that you could apply is on the table as of yet. That's the famous thing. Everything is on the table at the moment. I think you won't have everything. I definitely like the 2 points for a kick outside.
You'd have got quite a few of them, Tomás.
I would have missed a few as well. That would be the one thing, and I think I'm not sure how it's going to be policed, is the 3 men. I've always questioned this. I've always questioned, and I'm talking as a defender. So if I'm a number 5 and I'm an attacking half-back and there's 3 men detailed to stay inside in a half, it's just the policing of this that I have desperate problems with. So let's just for argument's sake, in an attack, something has happened and I end up marking the corner forward who's not allowed to go back into his own half. I don't know how. Obviously they have some way of policing this, but if I'm a wing back, I'm allowed to attack into the opposition half, but that corner forward isn't, and I might still be on him for a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and I might bomb. And I don't get how they can police that. And when I talk about policing stuff, I know it'll be a lot easier to police in the inter-county big games where there's numerous refs, numerous sideline men, etc. But at club level and all that, all I would like to see is, I think the whole point of these rules coming in the first place was to make the spectacle of GA football a little bit more appetizing for the viewer. And in that way, I presume a lot of that was to thin out the congestion that is always inside the 65. So I'd love to actually watch the matches. I think the guys in charge are as good and as close as you can get to fellas who will meticulously come up with the best option. But then you'll have coaches who will try, and that's the beauty of the sport. I actually think, lads, and I'll be honest with you, I actually don't see much. If you see, there was some games that we saw this year, and it was defensive in a lot of it, but I think the attacking mindset has changed so much. It's happening quicker, it's happening faster, it's happening more often, and it's better to watch as a result. And I include all the teams I would have considered ultra defensive and boring to watch 3 or 4 years ago in that. So I think our game has developed. I think if they bring in 2 or 3 tweaks, I think it would improve it again. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. All right, Peter, what's grabbed your attention? What do you like?
I thought you were going to say there's no need for any changes there, Tomás.
Yeah, well, that's where he was edging.
Well, if they left 4 or 5 teams playing.
Look, brilliant to see all these ideas and the reason. And this review committee have went about their work as you'd expect under Jim Gavin. Everything was done to the 10th degree, and they've gathered up everybody's opinions. The only thing that I was hoping that when they would come forward with their proposals, that they would have 2 or 3, 4 at the most, in order that they would be carried. I think there's just too much on the table, and for these challenge games and exhibition games that are going to be taking place now over the coming weeks to try out, there's too much going on. And as Tomás said, you have to consider the referee and a lot of these, and a lot of these rules that it's making the job of the referee more difficult, and that's the last thing that we need. So look, in summary, the 2 or 3 that I'm glad to see, and maybe a couple that we could nearly forget about, in my opinion. Forget about the vanishing foam, and that's not a problem in GA at the minute, where free kicks is taken from. And
unless you're Gooch.
Well, the referee doesn't need to be going around with foam and checking who stepped over the line and whatnot. The tap and go, I think, would be a nightmare for referees to officiate as well, and where players are standing from the opposition players and whatnot. The one-on-one throw-in, not too sure where that came out of. I didn't think that there was a real problem for throw-ups in the centre of the pitch. But the 4 points for the goal, 2 points from outside the 40 mark, I think that will definitely benefit our game and make it a better spectacle. Descent for move from 13 metres to 30, possibly 50 metres. It's something that happens in the AFL. Definitely would work in our game.
Yeah,
would stop players trying to slow it up and throwing the ball away, and nearly accepting or being happy with the referee bringing it forward 13 metres because you're slowing the whole game down. So you'll think twice now about committing a foul or trying to slow the game down after a free, knowing that it's going to be 50 metres. And the last one as well that I would look forward to, and we've got to give it a try, and it'll be interesting to see how it works out in these games, is the 3 players inside as well. Because in theory the ball should be moving much quicker and less congestion back in opposition defences. So that's my take.
Last word to you, Rory, because there's a lot in there, isn't there? It's
Yeah,
just trying to see what's going to stick here.
I think, and as Peter, and I think Dara, Tomás's brother, mentioned in the Irish Times yesterday that once Jim Gavin was on board, the smirking and sniggering down the back of class would stop straight away and people would take it a lot more seriously. And I think he's lended credibility to it just by attaching his name alone, which is great. I'd love to watch these games, and I wonder, would it be within their remit to make them available after the games have been played so people could actually get a sense themselves? It might even help in terms of which parts of these rules they go forward with, in terms of trying to get across the line as well, in terms of making their case and say, look, we tried all of these rules and here are the 3 that we pick that we think will work without having too much of a knock-on effect in terms of the law of unintended consequences. I think tidying up the offensive mark is potentially a good one. Like the way it is at the minute, it's a bit farcical. I think the fact that you have to be inside the 20-meter line and the kick has to be outside the 45, I think is exactly what it should have been designed to do in the first instance. If it was dispensed with entirely, I'm not entirely sure
Nobody
I'd be all. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think what's great is that these are being tried. And I think as Tomás said, the fact that they're looking to try and make the game a more aesthetically pleasing spectacle, both from the viewer, the player, the supporter. I think that's a positive. And I don't think you can draw too much definitive judgment because we haven't really seen them in practice just yet.
Yeah. Well, we'll hold our counsel until we do, and we'll leave it there for the football this week. Lads, enjoy the matches at the weekend, and fingers crossed, Rory, that you get a Cork double in Tullamore. Enjoy it. Tomás and Peter, thanks a million for being with us, and don't forget to like and follow wherever you get your podcasts. We'll talk to you next week.
GAA Podcast on RTE.ie, sponsored by Optimum Nutrition. No matter your goal, if you're putting it in, we'll help you get more out. Optimum Nutrition, the official performance nutrition partner of the Gaelic Players Association.
Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that never give in.
He hits it. It's over the bar.